Welcome to Being Bolder, the podcast. We're so glad that you're tuning in with us today. I'm Rustin Hamilton here with Bronwyn Weaver. Hey, Bronwyn.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Yourself?
I am great.
All right. All right. Well, so today we're going to talk about a specific article that's going to be in the second um, issue of Boulder magazine. But before that, let's give everyone an update real quick about kind of where we are with the second issue, and we are kind of in the, I would say, content wrapping up stage. Would that be fair? What would you call it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. In fact, if you heard me say great, I mean, when you asked me how I was, I said it with kind of a lot of determination. Wrapping up things is hard for me. I have lots of great ideas. That's kind of one of the things I just love to come up with ideas. But having the discipline to like, okay, we chose the ideas, we figured out what we were going to write about. Now we've got to do all of the final things. We have to make sure things are proofed. Have to make sure that we've got the proper resolution on the photography or the illustration that we're going to use in the magazine, that all of our color correction is correct. When you do things in print, those things last forever. Like even this podcast, we could screw up. We could say, hey, wait a minute, let's just start all over again. And nobody would be the wiser.
Yeah,
But in the print world, if we print something and well, heaven forbid, we've printed a page upside down, we've not edited something correctly, we've gotten our information wrong, all of those things would like live on with the publication and it would be horrible. So we have a lot of pressure when we're doing something in print to not only make it this great experience for everybody to read from page to page, but also the responsibility of getting it right and making sure that the magazine, no matter whether it's, in a couple weeks when you get it in your mailbox or when you have it on the shelf for a year or two before the next kid might be interested in looking through it or perusing it, um, we've got to have it right. So, um, this week is wrapping things up, making sure that it is as perfect as we can get it to the printer. And that doesn't to say that it's like clear cut when something is finished. I think especially with the kind of magazine, and I want to remind everybody that might be just joining us, what is Boulder Magazine? Well, Boulder Magazine is about where things come from and why we care so much about it. It's an earth science magazine. We like to say it's for the whole family. It's for kids from 8 to 80. And so the responsibility of creating this publication that's 80 pages long, that will be of interest to really anybody that picks it up. It gives us a lot of freedom, but it also there comes with it kind of a lot of responsibility of making it awesome. So anyway, that's a little bit about the magazine. We've got some people on our team are already working on the next issues ahead, but I'm kind of back in the trenches. A lot of this stuff was written a while ago, and now I'm making sure we have room for the kind of treatment, whether it's something that already I've taken one story that I just didn't feel like we had room enough to make it as cool as it needed to be, and it's now been bumped to another issue. And now we've made space for something else. Um, and that brings me to what we're going to talk about today, because it was a couple of weeks ago that you were out in the field, but it was kind of in your backyard, and you were doing some research on a story that we're going to have in this issue. You want to talk about it?
absolutely. So um, let me start with the Kansas City Chiefs
Oh,
because if you
jeez.
live if you live where I live in Kansas City, most things begin and end with the Kansas City Chiefs over the last few years. So, and I'm kind of joking, but at the same time, there is a tie in here. So, the Kansas City Chiefs are owned by the Hunt family, Clark Hunt and his family. And it used to be Lamar Hunt. And the reason why that matters is because Lamar Hunt was the person who started the AFC. and back in the 60s, and was a big player in the NFL in general. So this family is all about sports, and of course, they are into business. Now, how did they make all their money? Well, one of the ways they made their money was in mining, and it was in storage. And so in Kansas City, going back to the 1930s, a different company decided to start mining for limestone in some of the hills, kind of on the outskirts of the city. Um, and now it's not as much the outskirts, still kind of, but the city has broadened. So
And wasn't it let me ask you a question, because this is something that I'm gonna be in, and before we go any further, I just gotta weigh in on the Kansas City Chiefs. I liked the Kansas City Chiefs when Joe Montana was the quarterback and Marty Schottenheimer was the coach, and that dates me just a little, but that's all right, so that's all I have to say about Kansas
why
City.
would you like them then and not like them now? What was so great about them?
Because
No, and they were great. They were awesome then, by the way. That was a fun
I know
time.
Marty
Yeah,
Schottenheimer built the defense for the AFC, and all of the
that's
AF
true.
AFC coaches that were solid in defense were all students of Marty Schottenheimer, including Pittsburgh and the Browns and kind of in my part of the world, and so my allegiance with Marty, that's how I became a Kansas City Chiefs fan.
I understand that, and I
Okay.
appreciate that.
All
Does
right,
any of
so
that linger over? Like, are you any is any part of you still a fan of the Chiefs? Understanding, by the way, that you live in Northeast Ohio, so
yeah.
you are not too far from Cleveland, and he was coach of
Yeah,
Cleveland.
he was coach of Cleveland,
Yeah,
and he,
Schottenheimer.
Schottenheimer was. In fact, who's the what's his name? The sweatshirt coach of the
Belichick?
Boston, but yeah,
Yeah,
he
Belichick.
worked for Marty in Cleveland, right?
That's right. I
So,
forgot about that. Yeah.
anyway, yeah, but football is I was a coaches kind of a fan. I loved all the coaches, and now I don't have a lot of time a day for football, so
I
I've
don't know
kinda
how
lost
you
touch.
the one thing this world has in common, Bronwyn, is the love for Andy Reid, the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. You can hate the Chiefs and still
I
love
do like
Andy.
Andy Reid. I do
Yeah,
like Andy Reid, and
yeah.
he has a tie to
He's
Marty
old school.
Schottenheimer too. That's right,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah, he
he's old
does.
school.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay,
enough
so
football, but let me ask you the question I was gonna ask you.
yeah.
So I have found a cross section, and most of the people that are reading Boulder Magazine are starting to get exposed to some of these things that we talk about in mining or referring in some when you're talking about geology, there's 2
Mhm.
ways of looking at a site, at a piece of property. One is looking right down on top of it, and that's like we're all familiar with Google Maps or any kind of a mapping thing where you're looking down on top, um, to see where northeast, west, south is, right? Now, if you drew a line right across whatever you're looking at and could split the earth open, right? And go down, what you would see are all the layers, right, underneath the
Yep,
surface,
yep.
and that's considered a cross section. And it is what it sounds like. And so I have looked at cross sections of Kansas City, and you can see that where there are hills, when it starts down by the
Mhm.
river, and then when there are hills, the layers of geology are exposed along those along the hillside. And
Yep.
my understanding is that where Subtropolis starts, where this mine starts that Lamar Hunt bought, was kind of on the level of where the river is, and it went right into this layer of limestone. Is that what you could see from where you were when you went there?
Oh, that's a very specific question. I would say this, first of all, it is close to the river.
Okay.
Um, I'm trying to I'm literally thinking here. It would have to be, as the crow flies, probably between a quarter mile to a third of a mile from the water, I think. Maybe a
But
little if
maybe
it's
like the ancient, when you think about that riverway that would
yeah.
have eroded, that you were in a valley, right?
Mhm.
Near where the river was, and
This
that's
is
why
the
that's
Missouri
limestone.
River. The
Yeah, the
Missouri
Missouri
River, by
River,
the way, which is the
where it was
longest river in the
exposed.
United States.
Yeah.
in terms of just total length. And a lot of the river, I mean, in different areas, does have, I mean, like coming right out of the water, you can see the limestone. And
Mhm.
this is going all the way into like St. Louis and
Mhm.
probably, well, that's where it meets up with the Mississippi. But
Because the geology there is pretty flat. The rocks are
yeah,
they're in fact, one of the terms is kind of like a layer cake. The the limestone there and that layer of limestone is pretty flat, so that when you go into the mine, it's like you're going into a parking garage and everything is kind of on the same level. Is that how you
basically,
felt?
yeah. And basically, the way they described it was um, there is essentially, I believe it was 17 feet of rock that they were
Mhm.
mining. So from where they went in, they figured out how low they could go. They figured out how high they could go, and they went, a mile deep into this minimum, and they stayed. I mean, it was like you said, it was level pretty
Yeah.
much the whole time. There was really no change. And what they will do, I mean, they still will take out some shale from there. What they basically do is they take out the limestone from about 17 feet above where they would be standing down
Mhm.
to about 4 feet above where they would be standing, all right? And then that's shale, and then every time that they remove, they want more space for underground storage.
Yeah,
We'll back up here in just a second, but they have to remove that shale, but they won't do it until that space is needed.
because
Does that
the
make
shale
sense?
isn't really worth construction. I mean,
It's right,
the rock that would be above or below that limestone layer isn't good construction material, so that's I can understand that. Well, tell us, like,
right.
what was it like when you like, who was the one who gave you the tour? What was that all ab what was it
Well,
like
that
to go
was
there?
yeah, I mean, basically, Hunt Midwest has their offices in Kansas City in what I believe it's in the Crossroads district, which is closer to downtown. This
Mhm.
is on the mine itself, and the storage is on the east side. And I'm going to back up just a little bit. So we've talked about the mine started in the 30s. It was probably in the 50s, I believe, when they started realizing that they could use that space for something. And
Yeah,
it's kind of going back to what you said. It's a level area. They went through the side of a hill. It was not an above ground quarry. It was, so they just went straight in.
yeah,
So it was easy to go inside with a vehicle.
yeah.
And today there are semis that are constantly going in and out of this place. So that's how big it is. But they started storing, I believe, cars there fairly early on. Um, Ford has a manufacturing facility not too far away. They've stored vehicles there for years. The postal service has a location down there now. Bottom line
Wow.
is there are, I believe, like 55 different businesses that are down there and over 2,000 people that work down there every day.
Wow.
The
Wow.
temperature is a steady 68 degrees, and it might vacillate 1 or 2 degrees on occasion, depending on where
Yeah.
you are. But they don't have to worry about heating and cooling. That's not something that most of the locations have. Um, and yeah, it was a cool tour. It was Everything was very surprisingly very straight, and I mean, we've been underground, to
Yeah.
a number of places, right? And things can be kind of all over the place. This is built like a business park. It just happens to be, 150 feet below the surface,
Wow.
and it is the largest underground storage facility in the world. I don't think anything really comes that close to it. But it's just really cool how um, people will look at space like that and will go, "This is perfect for what we need to do." One cool
That's cool.
example,
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
sorry. Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say one really cool example um, is stamps. Stamps that are sold to people. Every stamp goes through the facility that is in the Subtropolis. I'm not really sure why. They really couldn't explain why, but
Wow.
basically it's just like a lot of other things that are created and then basically stored at a particular location. Every stamp, whether it's just your common everyday regular postage, or if it's something that is specialized for collectors and that kind of thing. They all go there first, and then they get redistributed around the country. And so, just cool little things like that.
That's you know, well, and that I know that in other parts of the country there are underground mines similar to the way that the Subtropolis is set up in Pennsylvania. I think the Treasury Department keeps documents in several of those kinds of underground mines. And when you think about it, what a safe, secure, constant humidity, constant temperature. It's a very green and all of the sustainability senses of that word, a very green uh, way of uh, managing things that need to be protected. And we're not going to get into. We're just giving you a kind of a overview, just a taste of the subtropolis. A lot of people just can they think of underground mining as something very foreign, very different, but almost everybody has been in an underground parking garage. Almost everybody has traveled in a tunnel that has gone underneath a mountain, because that's the way that the highway has gone. And so it's an experience that a lot of people have had. They just don't even think of it in the same terms. And in that kind of limestone, the um, the limestone itself is so strong that there are big pillars. What they do is they mine out certain rooms, and then the limestone that they leave behind that they don't touch then is strong enough to support the structure. Is that what you could see?
Yeah, so the pillars are kind of square, and they're 25 feet by 25 feet. They're 17 feet tall. I mentioned 17 feet in terms of how much rock, basically from top to bottom that they're
Yeah.
pulling out of there to use the space. And I want to say they are, um, I have some of the numbers in front of me. I do not have this number. I want to say they're like 60 some feet apart from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So, or like around 65 feet or something like that. But they are all the way throughout. And if you have a business down there, you will more than likely have an exposed wall at some point that is made out of the pillars. So one of the pillars. So it's
Hmm.
just kind of cool. And um, during the COVID years, starting with the fall of 2020, another mine here in the Kansas City area that is also used for storage. It's in Parkville, Missouri, which Kansas City surrounds it. Actually, my wife actually, who was a retired school teacher at the time, started a class underground in an office area that had been used for something different and was just sitting there, available. Um, and opened basically a class for parents who did not want their kids to go to public school. They might have been a little fearful of different things, and so they wanted a larger space where kids could spread out more.
Yeah.
And it was several different grades. And it was really cool because most of the walls, at least where they were located, were rock walls. And they're just and the play area, which was behind where they studied, uh, looked like the Bat Cave. I mean, looked exactly like, because it was low slung. It was it was raw all the way around. It was not painted the whole bit,
Yeah. How cool,
and
though, for kids.
people
Maybe a
just,
whole class of geologists would have
yeah.
come out of that experience.
Yeah.
That's great.
So anyway, yeah, we can go on, but it was a neat experience, and I believe you can actually do tours down there. So
That's
something to think
really
about.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, and we're gonna try, for everybody listening, we would love to hear from you if you've got a great story for us. There are probably some people listening that are involved um, in some way connected to the earth by what they do, whether you're a miner, you're a forester, you are somebody in construction. Um, we're hoping to get stories from you about places that you think would be cool, and things that you think would be interesting for people to know more about. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your ideas. Meanwhile, we're going to be digging around ourselves, looking for those places that we can go to, so we can share the experience and maybe open people's eyes to uh, w- what the possibilities are. One more football thing
Yeah.
to end this whole thing with. You did an interesting calculation. There is as much space underground as there you did a calculation with the, stadium where the Kansas City Chiefs play.
The number of stadiums that can be basically placed in the area that Subtropolis takes is 55 stadiums. So 55
Jeez.
could set within that space, and that space is from where you enter to basically where it stops is a mile and a half. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
nice and big, and there are plans, by the way, to keep going, and there is an exit point where they would be coming out on the other end, on the side of a hill, and then ultimately, they would like to have 2 entrances instead of just 1 to Subtropolis.
Wow, it truly is a city underground, and, that is so in this issue of the magazine, we're gonna give you just sort of a glimpse of it. I think one of the other cool things about it is something you and I've talked before, that there's mining actually occurring under it, what, 900
Yeah,
feet
yeah,
under the subtropolis?
exactly.
So, not only is there stuff going on top, they've got an amusement park, and then the subtropolis is 150 feet down, and then 900 feet further down is another mining operation. So, it's so cool to learn about these things that might be they might be right in your own backyard, but you'd never think to ask. And so those are things we just delight in covering in the magazine. And so, at any rate, stay tuned. Lots of cool stuff. We love underground mining, so we're going to talk to you a lot of in upcoming issues. We'll be talking about salt mining, which is really cool underground, as well as all the other, kind of cool stories. Anyway, please check us out on bouldermagazine.com. We love the fact that you're listening to us. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to this, maybe pass it on to somebody who might want to know a little bit more about what we're doing and what's motivating us to create a children's magazine about earth science and how we really want this magazine to be something fun for the whole family. So bouldermagazine.com is the website. You can give us your feedback there. You can subscribe. We would just love for you to subscribe. Maybe figure out how to get us into your local school or library. If it's something that you're having a challenge being able to afford this, email us, let us know, and maybe we can help find a sponsor, especially if it's a library or a classroom. We really want to make sure that everybody knows about all of the beautiful things that are in our natural world of natural resources. So we really appreciate you guys that are taking the time to bring us along with you.
All right. Well, thank you, Bronwyn, and we will speak again soon. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, and we'll be back again soon with Bean Boulder.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye bye.